how to maximize some opportunities that may be coming in spite of these headwinds, and how to strategize to shield the Nigerian economy from some of the harsh realities that may be coming from this tariff. We have to discuss this. Mr. Bismarck Rewane, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Mr. Rewane, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Lily. Thanks for having me.
So I think there's a lot of weighing going on about the tariffs, the opportunities versus the risks for Nigeria. Which one outweighs the other?
I think first and foremost, we need to understand what has happened. On the 4th of April, Donald Trump introduced the tariff, started the tariff war, and the markets lost 5% on the 3rd of April, lost 6% on the 4th of April. So in all, about 11 to 12% was wiped off market capitalization across global markets. Now, today, we've seen some recovery. Of course, first and foremost, also, the Chinese now responded with a 34% tariff threat. So we've seen some recovery today, about almost 1% in the markets in the Far East, or 1 or 2%, but that's far from it. The big thing is that the uncertainty triggered the fears of a recession. So what is happening now, the fears of a global recession has far outweighed the uncertainty in terms of what the tariff structure is. Now, today also, I think the Chinese have affected their currency. The Chinese have embarked on what we call competitive devaluation. They brought their currency down to its lowest level in many years. Therefore, if you are buying goods from China, in spite of the tariff, you are going to, because the currency has fallen in value, you are going to be seeing the Chinese goods becoming cheaper. Now, Donald Trump has said that if the Chinese do not back down, he's going to slap another 50%, bringing the entire thing to about 126%. Having said this, let us ask ourselves, what is the likelihood that things, what are the things that can change the trajectory? One, will Donald Trump suspend the tariffs? Very unlikely that will happen. He will suspend them in tranches. Two, will the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States bring down interest rates so that that can trigger an increase in stock prices? I don't think the Federal Reserve Bank is going to do that because it will lose its independence and credibility. So what we are seeing is we are going to be seeing a slow but steady Donald Trump beginning to ease off on some of these tariffs. But meanwhile, the uncertainty and the fears of recession have become very palpable. And that is where the problem is. If there's a recession, and you've seen it already, that the price of oil has dropped to 60, 65, Brent is about $64 a barrel, which is $10 below our benchmark price and really hurts countries like Nigeria who are exporters. We've also seen the price of gold decline and the value of the dollar decline. Normally, the price of gold, when there's an inverse relationship between the price of gold and the value of the dollar. So again, we are in an uncertain world. So all of this point to the fact that we do not know what's going to happen next, but all we do know is that commodity prices are going to fall sharply, that the price of borrowing, because of the risks that are there, price of borrowing by countries like Nigeria and corporates like Nigeria is going to be higher. And then we are back into the situation with it happened in 1998 in Southeast Asia. It happened in 2008 during the Lehman Brothers crisis. It happened during the COVID crisis. Is there going to be coordination this time amongst regulators and policymakers to ensure that the world doesn't suffer? It's yet to be seen, but I think that, generally speaking, this is a short-term disruption. And over the next month or two, we'll see some settlement, and then things begin to stabilize. So I wouldn't panic. As a matter of fact, people are now beginning to buy into the market because they think that stocks are very, very cheap.
So you don't think there's a need for review of key assumptions by the federal government of Nigeria? I mean, when you see the difference in the oil prices and now the Naira has lost more than 2% or so.
No, I think that you say long term you look for value, short term you look for direction. The direction shows that there's a problem, but it's a problem for everybody. It's not just Nigeria. And therefore, we could begin to have, I think what we have is a scenario-based budget. If the price of oil drops to 65 and stays there, this is what we have to do. But Nigeria is very, very clear about borrowing, limiting its borrowing because its cost of borrowing is pretty high. And therefore, some benefits, some of the policies that have been implemented or introduced, which will actually make the price, which will make our spending not go haywire. Those are the things that we need to worry about now. How do we rein in our spending, and how do we actually motivate investors to come into this market? I think I wouldn't bother too much about the effect on the Nigerian economy because it's global, it's across Africa, and it will blow over in a couple of months when things stabilize.
All right,
No,
so
yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Rewane.
Okay, now, so let us take a look at some of the things that happened. The price, the Naira depreciated. I think that's an adjustment which the Nigerian government or the central bank is doing, which is right. It's depreciated at the official market, and the central bank has put in about $180 million in the last 2 days into the market to keep it stable. The price of cocoa has fallen by 6% to about $7,994. Nigeria hopes to raise its production in the next 3-4 years to 500,000 tons. We are doing 250,000 tons per annum. Again, the global stock markets are in turmoil. The Nigerian stock market also fell. I think that we are overreacting here. In the retail market, Nigeria's price of petrol, PMS, is now at 930, while diesel is at 1,080 to 1,100. But what we've seen recently, the last few days, is that domestic commodity prices have begun to increase. Most notably, after the fasting, we've seen a 20% increase in the price of tomatoes. We've seen an increase in the price of peppers, and we've also seen an increase in the price of palm oil. There was a decline of 2% for vegetable oil to 19,000, and rice is at 85,000. So what are we seeing? We are seeing commodity prices, food commodity prices begin to increase, driven by the fact that the planting season is here. We also begin to see that there might be an increase in the rate of inflation, which because of the increase in the price of petrol. But we haven't seen a corresponding increase in the price of transport fares so far. So, but one interesting thing that we must note is that many of the firms are now beginning to release their results, and the Q1 results are showing profitable operations. They have not wiped off the losses of the previous year of 2024, but we are seeing on an ongoing basis, both in the telco sector, in the brewing sector, in the food and fast-moving consumer goods sector, we are beginning to see increase in the price, increase in revenues, increase in sales. People are beginning to settle down to accept that the worst may be over. The worst may be over.
Mr. Rewane, can we say the worst is over? I mean, we thought the worst was over, but with the recent happenings and all, it does seem that not just Nigeria, though, but the days of high inflation may just be very close to us.
Well, this time, the changes that are happening are self-induced. That is, the United States has disrupted things with their policy initiatives. The United States, I think, will reverse some of those decisions when it begins to impact everybody. We are in a political system. In 2026, there's going to be midterm elections. So I think the United States is going to actually begin to retrace some of the steps, but without giving in totally. There was a reason why the Republican Party and Trump decided to alter the current infrastructure, what I call the architecture, the global financial architecture. Will they achieve everything? No, they will not achieve everything, but they will achieve a little bit, and that little bit will tilt things in a particular way. The U.S. economy is a service economy, so even if you impose tariffs, there are not tariffs on services. So we are going to see that most of the reactions of the market and the reaction of people is kind of exaggerated because of the fear of the unknown. What I'm saying, and I think so, that the global markets will stabilize, the U.S. will backtrack on some of those policies, and that some of the changes that are good for the global economy in the long run will take place. But having said that, there's no substitute for the fact that countries like Nigeria have to press the reset button, have to use this opportunity to create stability in their own domestic and make the economies competitive. And that's where it is. So one, there should be institutional reform within Nigeria. Two, that Nigerians should accept the reality that we are not a rich country, but we are a country that has the potential of becoming rich if we do the right things. And we've heard this potential story for ages. Now, how do you convert potential into action? That's where we are, and that's the pressure under which Nigeria is having to deal right now.
Yeah, and some people have said this is the time to actually use the opportunity and convert those potentials to reality. But I mean, as you noted, it's a conversation we just keep having. Hopefully one day the story will change.
But let me say something, Nini, that we have to measure the steps we have taken so far. In the past 10, 15 years, we've moved closer and closer towards equilibrium. But also, we have also engaged in a lot of wasteful activity. So if you can reduce the waste and become more accountable, and at the same time become more efficient,
I can hear you.
The story begins to change. Until we do that, we are just going to be running, running around in the same direction.
4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, Mr. Rewane, thank you so much. Apologies to our viewers. That is Mr. Ojudemizwe, the next guest for the program. Some technicalities going on behind there. Apologies, Mr. Rewane, and to our viewers. But thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, for your views this morning. And yes, we all hope that one day we would change these potentials to become realities. And as you have said, perhaps this is the time to measure the impact of the reforms so far, so we can know what length we have covered and which one that's left for us to cover. Thank you so much, Mr. Bismarck Rewane.
Thank you for having me.